look at my life, I feel like most people, I deviated away from what I was because that's what most people tend to do when we get stuck in the matrix and we realize that we need to get our needs met and survive and pay bills and meet a partner or not or whatever we want to do. And so I think for me, like I just grew up as a kid with like, I had a sister who's a drug addict and just feeling like I have so many feelings and I don't know who's going to be able to hear them. And so writing was the place I would go. And then I kind of deviated away from that, and of all places, worked in counterterrorism. So that's an obvious next step.
So wild.
Yeah. I was like, nobody wants to feel how I feel, so I'm about to go find Bin Laden or whatever.
Can't be contained.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm so happy you're here. Thanks for
Oh my
coming.
God, yeah. It was a fucking mental health exercise. I was like crying this morning over nothing.
Tell me what happened.
I was just in my stuff. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Are we recording? I'm fine with it. Oh, cool. It's happening. I was just in my stuff. Like I was saying, it's like, I don't know. I don't even feel any of that pressure that mental health people feel where I need to be perfect. I don't have that story on myself.
Yeah. I
It's
love
like
that about you,
whatever.
though. That feels refreshing.
Well, I think it's like I've tried to be the friend with my audience. Not that I have a huge audience and I'm this person, but like I've tried
But you're
to.
famous in Taiwan.
I'm famous in Taiwan. It's very weird. It's very
It's so
weird.
cool. You would be famous.
It's
in
very
Taiwan.
weird. But I feel like a lot of people have tried. I think in our 20s, we tried to be significant. We tried to matter.
Yeah.
And I also was thinking about our 20s. I'm like, oh my God, I tried to be so like pretty all the time. And like all I cared about was how I looked and how famous I was deep down, if I got really honest.
Yeah. Oh,
And-
interesting.
And I like, oh, I got to be someone. I need to build a brand. I need to survive and I need to be picked and I need all this.
yeah.
I feel like once you hit your 30s, it's pretty savage. You're just kind of like, nothing matters. Why do I care about how my lips look or what these wrinkles are? And you just kind of free yourself.
Yeah, dude. As you're naming that, I was like, I definitely felt this like very obvious shift from 29 to 30. Like actually, you were there. Do you remember my 30th birthday party where we were all dressed in white?
Yeah.
And you like went downtown and went
Oh my
partying?
God, why do we all dress in white? Like all of my spiritual friends, we all look like we're going to like a group baptism. Like at the amount of birthday parties that everybody's like, wear white. And I'm like, we literally look like we're going to a church. Unbelievable.
I don't know. I was just like, I got a hit of inspiration. I'm like, this would be cool.
Yeah.
But I remember that night, Eric and I had just started dating.
Yeah.
But I remember going into that year feeling like I just give less fucks. And I think like my level of giving fucks has just completely diluted the older I get. Like the older I get, the less.
And you look better and you feel better. It's so
Interesting.
weird. Yeah. And it's weird too, because I feel like there's some friends I have, because the other day I went to therapy and I was telling my therapist at the end of the session, I'm like, how is everybody doing this whole life thing? Like without a therapist.
No pressure. Oh yeah, without a therapist.
Like
yeah.
how is everybody walking around with whatever happened to them in their life, right? Whatever traumas or mini traumas or whatever.
Yeah.
How are we all doing it and not talking about it? And she's like, well, they're not. Most of the population has an addiction. I'm like, well, clinically, when you look at like alcohol or drugs or porn addiction or whatever the traditional ones are, you know, I think it's under 50%. But then when you look at like sugar and emotional eating, which I mean, you know, all the things about,
Yeah.
it's like a lot of people are struggling to be here, you know? And I've been so in the question of like, how do I show up for people when the people in my life, when they're struggling to be here? Like, how do we
That's
be a good
really
friend?
great way to put it.
Yeah.
Struggling to be here. It's not that they're suicidal, or maybe some of them are, but there is a struggle to actually
Yeah.
be present,
Yeah.
be here. Yeah.
I was reading about the elements too. Like you've got fire, which is like transformation, right? Like moving your energy. You've got water, which is like emotions. Like I think of like Pisces and how they feel their emotions. I sound like I like live by the astrology, but I don't.
I'm like, I think this is the first time I
know,
talk
right?
about astrology.
This is another fucking day.
I'm like, what?
I know.
What's happening here?
Fucking love and then you've got like earth,
Yeah.
which is being grounded, being in your body, da da da. And it's funny, you're the most airy, earthy person I know. Like, because air is like being out of your body, being like whimsical, being creative, being an
Esoteric.
artist.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's funny because, like, I actually don't know if I know anyone like you where you're so on this earth and you're so not on this earth.
That's so interesting. Krista literally gave a very similar reflection in our interview.
Really?
Yeah. She's like, you're alien. Like,
Yeah,
you're
you
not
are.
from here.
I know.
What I said back to her, I was like, really? I'm like, I'm just me. I don't know. I'm just in here. I'm in
Yeah.
this body. I'm in this experience. So
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, like, I feel like Chris Akuchis, she feels like a fairy whenever I'm with
Oh,
her.
she's complete fairy energy.
I feel like a witch. Like, and I'm going to alchemy school. I'm going
Yeah, I
to
feel
like
that. I feel that.
herbalism classes.
But it's interesting, our different archetypes. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like we're so multidimensional.
Yeah.
There's so many different, like you have so many different aspects of you.
I don't think people really know them unless they really know me, which is so weird.
I was talking on an interview on like, this is why I hate Instagram, because I feel like people only get to see
Little slice.
one little slice of
Yeah.
one little side of me.
Yeah.
And then people make a whole idea about who you are.
Yeah.
You know, which is why I love this podcast and I love doing long form content and I love like getting into it because then,
Yeah.
you know, you get to express your different flavors, but we're
Yeah.
also multidimensional.
It's true. And I also think that there's something intimidating, like that whole expression, like, don't meet your heroes.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever someone signs up to talk to me for, you know, a consult for whatever I'm offering,
Yeah.
if they express any energy of like, you're the person and I'm so excited to talk to you
Yeah.
and I've been following you forever or whatever, I
Yeah.
always feel this like little pit in my heart of like, oh my God, I hope I live up to who they
You
want
know
me to
what's
be.
interesting? And I thought about this the other day. The downfalls that I've had from people have been the ones that put me on a pedestal
Right.
the most.
Yeah, I remember you've had some like,
Dude.
even in your business, like the clients that are a little more difficult, which is rare for you, but when it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Generally, my clients are so freaking easy
Yeah.
and amazing. Like just
Yeah.
so, but the ones that have rubs are the ones that pedestaled me. And then they're like, she's not perfect.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? You know, and that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard for me, you know, because I'm like, I love you and I'm so human, you know?
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
human. I fuck up all the time. I'll
Yeah.
always own it.
You're not, that's the thing about you that's really good. I feel like this is like can't be contained. It's like celebrate Sam hour for me, but like it can be contained. I just feel like that's what's so great about you. You're not a defensive person. Maybe that's your earthiness, but I struggle to be in the earth element. Like I struggle to be here. I have a lot of air. I'm a Gemini through and through. I feel like Geminis who go to a lot of therapy are like pretty like multifaceted. And maybe if
Yeah.
I didn't go, I'd just be like the Nightmare Before Christmas mirror, like with his head changing. I don't know. But I feel like so many people struggle with earth. Or people are so on earth that they have no expression. They have no air. They're not like out there and like being an artist or figuring out what they want to do. And, you know, we heard the word struggling with artist
Yeah.
when we were growing up. And little did we know as like millennials that we were going to grow up in the creator economy, which is all words. It's all art, which is such a cool thing.
Yeah.
But it also is really toxic because it ties your survival to your appearance, to how many people follow you.
Yeah.
Like
which
how
is
many
so bad
creators
for your
you-
mental health.
Yeah.
You know?
Like you need
It's-
more followers to pay your bills. Like that's not a good vibe.
It's interesting. It's like I can tell the quality of my art or the quality of my words or the quality of everything if I'm thinking it under the lens of are people going to enjoy this or are they going to think this is cool? But when I'm just creating, not for business, not for anything, not for Instagram, just for the pure like expression of art, artistry, and creativity, it's so enjoyable and the work is so good.
Yeah.
But there's almost like this pressure of how it's going to be received, which takes away of the magic, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because I feel like, number one, like life is an experiment. And I feel like I read about this in every book or whatever I've done. But I feel like a lot of people don't give themselves permission to just be in the in-between. And I don't know, like be real. Oh my God, I'm like forgetting what I'm saying. I'm like be, and you're like with me. And I'm like, I forgot what I'm talking. You're so enrolled.
I am opted in.
The way you're
I'm
opted
in your
is, like,
funnel. I'm in the funnel.
Yeah,
Tell me,
like-
what's next? What's the offer?
I know.
What's
I
the
like
offer?
gave you the hyperlink if you'd like to click and get to the whole website. I just think like people are really struggling to feel like they get to be who they are and they don't have to be like in this. I mean, obviously we need all of our energies, masculine, feminine. But I feel like a lot of people are pushing.
Yeah.
People are tired. It's so annoying to me as a spokesperson. I go on the news for SoFi And like the new, I love SoFi.
I was like, you're still doing that?
I'm still doing that. It's been
That's
4
so
years.
great.
I'm their
That's so
spokesperson.
great.
It's so random and so great.
So
I love
great.
them. But I go on the news and, you know, the guy's like, the Great Resignation. Why do you think this is happening? I'm like, this is the most obvious thing ever. Take a whole workforce, business owners, everybody, and most people don't like their jobs. Most people are disengaged from work because they don't know who they are. They don't know what they want, because we go to college and at 18, we're supposed to somehow sit in a room and be like, this is what we're going to major in. And it's like, it feels like being in preschool and having to marry your first crush.
It's backwards.
It's backwards.
It's so backwards. And there's like a lack of permission of our true creative expression to be received in the world. And I think that's a big deal. And I think that's causing a lot of depression and a lot of disconnection and a lot of confusion in people. Like, we have all of this energy and this life force to give, but it's like, how do I give it, and how does it work?
Yeah. And like, on the note of everything you're saying, back when you were opted in, I was just remembering, I've learned that you can't do an A+ job all the time because you can't sustain that. So when we take a huge population of people who are burnt out, and a lot of like employers or business owners or whatever, they expect 100%, and we're like squeezing the juice out of everything, right? Like squeezing the last of the toothpaste. I think the reality is we can't always create at the A+ level. And so most of the things I do, I try to do like a 93, a 94 on.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
Because I just think that extra like percent that gets you to 100 is what burns you out.
Interesting.
So there's only been 2 things I've ever created that I feel like this was my 100.
I know what one of them was.
The book.
The book and your TEDx talk.
Yeah.
Oh,
you already knew.
So great.
You're so great. You've just been witnessing me in all of my glory.
Well, when I think about you, I'm like, those 2 things are so bomb. And I know how hard you worked on it. Like, I feel like when we were writing our books in Bali, you were so committed to how good it was. And I was just like, not. Let's just say that.
Yeah, but it still was like your art in the end. Like, you still put the work in.
I was just over the book at that point, but yeah.
But that's the thing. Everybody has different dharma. Everybody has different stuff. I knew coming into this body, like, first of all, I grew up in a family of like really nice people, no massive trauma that I could like truly speak of and be like, wow, my mom really screwed me over with that. But I feel like most people have that. We grew up in like kind of normal homes. Maybe we had one really big thing happen. Yeah. But I think the ultimate thing for me was that I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel heard. So I was like I feel like the word transmute is like very trendy right now. Like, I'm trying to transmute that energy. But I was trying to like process that. Yeah. And so what I would do is like read a bunch of Shel Silverstein, like all of the Where the Sidewalk Ends. Yeah. And I just remember feeling so much and not knowing where to put it. And I won a poetry award when I was 11.
You did? I didn't know that.
So weird. I had a really weird poem. I went through a vegan phase where I wrote about a sick cow poem, and it went really.
You were vegan?
6 months. I felt bad for the animals. I still do. I think I want to be like an animal conservationist.
But you can do that without.
I donate to all the dog saving things. You have no idea. It's a whole budget item. It's a whole thing. But point being, it's like, I don't know, like when I look at my life, I'm like, I can only give 100 to so much and pour my soul into.
I get that, dude. I love the way you're explaining that. I think part of the reason why I don't get burned out often, because I'm very aware of like my energy, and I'm just hyper boundaried these days, because I know how, like, what is it? It's like, I prioritize feeling good over everything else. Yeah. You know? And so I'm very boundaried with it, but it's like, the times in which I do feel that creeping in is when I've lost myself a little bit and my perfectionist comes in, and I put the pressure on myself big time, but then I put the pressure on my team. And I'm noticing, and I notice that I'm doing it, and then I got to fucking clean it up after with them. You know, I'm like, I'm sorry. But it's like, it kind of, it's like the perfectionist thread kind of like gets in there, and she like wraps her, like, she wraps herself around me, and I can't tell in the moment, like, am I having high standards, or is this a distortion that's trying to get a need met? Yeah. And that's sometimes an interesting thing to discern in the system, you know? But I love that frame of like, 93% is good enough. Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah. It's like, and I feel like sometimes I forget that like in the areas that I'm naturally gifted, a 93 is like off the charts. Yeah. And I feel like that's why I'm so here for everybody to know where their gifts are. And when I look at my life, I feel like most people, I deviated away from what I was, because that's what most people tend to do when we get stuck in the matrix and we realize that we need to get our needs met and survive and pay bills and meet a partner or not, or whatever we want to do. And so I think for me, like I just grew up as a kid with like, I had a sister who's a drug addict and just feeling like I have so many feelings and I don't know who's going to be able to hear them. And so writing was the place I would go. And then I kind of deviated away from that. And of all places, worked in counterterrorism. So that's
wild.
an obvious next step.
So wild.
Yeah. I was like, nobody wants to feel how I feel.
path.
So I'm about to go find Bin Laden or whatever. But point being, like, I think that when you hit it right and you create real art, you really make something magic, and it takes the masculine energy, right? Like we need all the energies. So I push for the things I really believe in. You put something so timeless and special out and irreplaceable, and that to me is fulfillment. But you've got to be behind it, and you can't force anything to be that thing. You know when you've got something you really want to put yourself into, and most people don't give themselves permission to be like, this is the actual thing I want to put my full self in. And so for me, when you're like, you're famous in Taiwan, I'm like, literally so crazy. But like this book, I put everything into, and it keeps getting new deals in new languages.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. And
I feel like kind of famous because I was there when you wrote it.
Oh my God, I feel famous just touching. I feel like I'm in a good mood touching you because I was really not feeling myself.
Yeah,
this
when
morning.
you came in, I was like
in the darkness.
I was like, we need to
clear
out.
this.
We need to
help. Yeah.
You're good now, though.
SOS.
I feel like something lifted.
You know what's so funny? Like Nick, my best friend Nick, like she always she has a lot of empathy for depression and da-da-da. So like maybe once a year I'll feel depressed for like a day.
Yeah.
And because depression just isn't my go-to, like we all know anxiety is much more fun for me than depression is what I go for. So it's funny because I'll call her like when I was living in New York and I'll be like, I'm having the day. Like
this is the day.
I'm depressed today.
Yeah.
And she has so much empathy. She's a therapist, right? So she will call me the next day, like in the evening. This is so you. She'll be like, hey, how are you feeling? I'll be like, what do you mean? And she'll be like, yesterday I'm just checking on you. I'm like, what was it? Oh yeah, I was so depressed. It's over now. It's over. But it's like,
that's hilarious.
I know that's not everybody's reality, but I feel like, but yeah, like I think one of the things that has been such a hack for me in my career that I hope for every artistic person is like, if you don't know what the art is you want to make, don't force yourself to make art. Like you can play and force yourself to like engage and take steps, but don't force an idea upon yourself. Like give yourself time to iterate with life until the answer comes to you. You
know what the worst cock block for creativity is? Is having it like it needing to make money. Yeah. There's nothing worse.
Yeah. Totally.
It's the biggest cock block.
Yeah. It's like, let's take well, that's why my whole message in my book and everything is don't do what you love, do what you are. Like not everybody is meant to turn their art into money. That is so toxic for so many of us. And I feel like my writing was meant to turn into money because it's also not just my interest, but my core skill set, which is like, I just talk about this shit until I'm like blue in the face. Core skill set galore. Yeah. Because I just think it's the thing. Like if you don't know where your zone of genius is, like pause and figure it out, and take your time. And you don't have to busy yourself figuring it out. You can ask people questions, get curious how people see you. There's so much research to show that like we don't really see ourselves. Like other people see us better. Like there's a relationship book I read, Science of Happily Ever After, like forever ago. I have such a bad memory, like why I remember this random stuff, but it was talking about divorce is better predicted by your friends than the couple itself.
Really?
Yeah, because they're neutral observers. They're just
I was in the gym yesterday and I was like, Holly, she goes, yeah. I'm like, would you ever, can you please tell me if you ever see any red flags with my relationship? Yeah. She's like, 100%. I'm like, perfect. Yeah. Because it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, and then we have to protect our relationship and not expose our person to people's criticism. Because then suddenly we don't want to be friends with them if they don't like our partner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's a whole thing.
So it's a whole situation. It's very sneaky. Yeah. But Rick Rubin does talk about don't make what you think people want, just make what the expression of your heart is. Yeah. Let yourself just be in the energy of what would I love to create? Yeah. And it's that stuff that just the purest expression of your soul and who you are and using your unique ability and using what you're talented at, it just hits in a different way. Yeah. It's like, oh, this person this is their soul, that I'm feeling the frequency of their soul.
It literally pays to be you. And we just don't want to believe it, It's so true.
You're such a great example of that, though.
Thanks.
Like there's every couple of months you'll call me and you'll tell me this like amazing thing, and it's like, how the hell did that happen? But it's just because you're so committed to being you and doing it in your own way. It's intoxicating. It's like so great.
Well, you know what? Also, I'm not afraid of being broke. Not that I like want that path.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of like anything happening, and as long as I can be myself. It sounds extreme, and I don't think
beautiful.
extremes are the thing.
Yeah.
But to me, like wanting fulfillment more than anything has been such a guiding light for me. And so even when I'm in my human and I'm like struggling with my little earth element and it's hard to be here, I already have a knowing it's going to pass. And like happiness is in being me.
So good.
And I also think like you watched me promote my book. How many podcasts did I go on?
Oh man, it was crazy.
Yeah, I like turned into a podcast. So many podcasts. So
did you do a Taiwanese pod? Or
no, well, that's what the lesson was for me. So my book came out, the publisher had all the English speaking rights. I pushed so hard to be like, everybody make a U-turn, listen to this book. And I believed in it, but still. And then it drops in Taiwan. Nobody knows me. It's in Mandarin. And I was just telling on your team, like I was just telling him that it's so funny because you get a little book deal when it's like international, like they pay you whatever basic fee to like have the rights to put it out. And you have no idea how it's going to do. And you don't have any way to know the numbers until they email you a royalty check, right? So I didn't expect $1. I was like, nobody knows me in Asia. Like nobody's going to listen to this. I have no influence. I can't communicate. I can't go on a podcast. I don't speak Mandarin.
Yeah.
Like I'm just out here.
You look like a Mandarin though.
I know. I look like a Mandarin orange. That's funny you say that. I feel like a nacho. Like you pick the healthy thing, and I pick the like
nacho.
And I'm
That's
like,
so typical of you and I.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Anyway,
but yeah, like I don't speak it, and it's funny. Like it's like the book dropped, and it just sold a bajillion copies, and
so cool.
All these publishers are taking my content, putting it into Mandarin to get it to this audience.
Incredible.
So what it taught me is like create from your soul. Don't assume that the mass audience that you're marketing to are the people that need it. Remember, the world is really big.
Yeah.
Remember that you don't need to push for everything.
Yeah.
You know, like, and when something works, it's a whisper from the universe. Like, hear it.
Yeah.
It's a breadcrumb.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, whoa, breadcrumb. We're doing this in Japan.
Oh, dude, so good.
You
Oh,
know?
I'm going to Japan.
Oh my gosh, really? When?
Yeah, October
This is such an
18th.
us conversation. I can't believe this. And you know, most people would edit their podcast out of these moments where you're like,
Not
oh,
going
I'm
to. Oh, Japan.
Yeah. Wait, that's so exciting.
Mm-hmm. So I'll
amazing.
tell people about you there.
Oh my gosh.
I'll let them know.
Well, I'm hiring right now. I'm like hiring someone who speaks Japanese and English
It's incredible.
that can help me do the whole deal.
This is it.
Yeah.
It's like following your bliss and intuitive hits. It's like it always, always, always works. Like when I look back on my career, like this podcast is a great example of that, right? I was kind of sharing the story of the pause team, like we had the concept for the Embodied Life podcast. I was talking about it. We were doing the branding. We were going back and forth. And then I sat down to record the first episode and I literally had a breakdown. Like I was bawling my eyes out. My heart was pounding. And I looked at my videographer, John, and I was like, dude, this is not the vibe. Like this is not what I meant to do. I'm not meant to record this podcast. And I was like, shoot, man, the team's been working on this for so long, but I had to be so true to myself. And then the next day I had lunch with my speaking coach and we're just shooting the shit. And he turns to me and goes, how's the show going? And I'm like,
It's a 0.
it's a 0. I scrapped it. I'm not doing it. He's like, why? And I just look at him. I'm like, I don't know, Patrick. I'm like, I just can't be contained.
Yeah.
And like right when I said that,
There it
I
is.
was like, there it is. But it's like, what I mean by that is like, I want to be able to, for myself, it's not about teaching it's not about teaching how to not be contained. It's about living it for myself and allowing myself to just follow that bliss and follow those little cues of like the whispers, like you mentioned from the universe of like, go here and do this. And as long as it feels expansive, like how can we prioritize the intuition and the experience of expansion over what makes sense? Because whenever we do what makes sense, it's so dull and one dimensional.
Well, you know, I used to think personal branding was like kind of an annoying topic because it's so businessy and I feel like so much more of like a little poet inside. But I actually think it's one of the most important things everyone can do. And so that's one thing I want to talk to you about. The second thing is, you know how you read a lot of Joe Dispenza?
Yeah.
You know how he talks about the quantum field?
Yeah.
I feel like people who are listening right now, it's like, if you don't know what you want to do next, because we're talking about being the artist, following the whispers, if you're hearing nothing, like you're hearing crickets, I feel like sometimes, like, for example, right now, you know that I've written 40 TED Talks and booked 39 on stage for people,
crazy.
which is
Amazing.
crazy.
You're
But
crushing it.
I'm having so much fun with
Yeah.
it, and I'm like really being me. It's like a little poet. I'm like,
So
my
good.
nervous system doesn't have to have 4,000 people looking at me. I don't need to be the speaking tour keynote person. Not that I'm not grateful for that.
Yeah.
But I love being the person behind the people. I love helping people tell stories. That's what I'm so good at. That's what I've been doing since I was a little kid, writing weird vegan cow poems, you know?
I have to read these.
Right.
Do you have them somewhere?
Yes. I mean, I can literally, I memorized the poem. It was like, there was a sick cow. He lay helplessly there. It didn't even rhyme. It was like, he couldn't see through one eye. Nothing was there. Like, there was no rhyme. And then get this. And it was like, he saw his master. He happily mooed. And then he realized he's about to be food. How dark is that? That was 4th grade. I always remember that because it was so fucked. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going through so much.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
But like, point being with this TED thing is like, I've been so many things, right? Like, I'm a spokesperson. I've gone on speaking tours. I got my show just like you have your podcast. I've got a book. I've got the courses. Now I'm in Taiwan. Like, I have so many different identities that I could buy into. But I'm realizing that this one, the way that I've been helping people, feels so me. And it took me all 36 years to like really feel that. And how I'm making money. Like, oh, whenever people like hire me for it, I'm like, oh, this is so fun.
So great.
Yeah, it's like the easiest money and funnest time I've ever had. And
It's so
so
good.
it is. And I think about Joe Dispenza. I'm like, this idea, where was this idea in all of those weird years of of offering myself up as an entrepreneur? Like, obviously I've had my ups, I've had my downs, I've had my sideways, but why didn't I pull this idea off the quantum shelf, you know?
Years ago.
Right. And so I feel like that it's also been a reminder, like what happened in Taiwan, just going randomly viral as an author there. And also, you know, realizing that the best idea I've ever had in my career, the best offer I've ever offered, that I'm having the most fun, I could have done it 5 years ago, but it just wasn't ready to come off the shelf.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel similarly with my life mastermind.
Yeah.
Like I work with about 40 women and it's just the most energy rich, fun thing that I do. Like I just
it's so
get to
funny that it's called life. It's so you.
lucrative, impactful, fun, and easy, girlfriend. It's like that's the vibe for how we do business. But it's so fun. Like seeing the Voxers that come through and like being with them on Wednesdays and like feeling their energy and meeting up in person. Like a bunch of them are flying out to San Diego in a few weeks. We're all going for dinner. Like it's just so freaking fun.
I can't even.
I love it
that.
so much.
Wow.
And it's like they're all up leveling. They're all growing their businesses. They're all connecting with each other. It's just like, it's like the most fun. And it's exactly what I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
You know, I just feel it in my bones.
Yeah, we're so different in that way too, because you have a lot of like fire to be able to like be with all these people and like really hear their things. And I want to hear things because I'm such a feeler.
Yeah.
But then I need to like go away and write and like reflect and da-da-da. Whereas you've got so much energy to just like keep holding it.
It spews out of me.
Yeah, like even in my private practice, like I don't take too many sessions in a day when I do it because whether it's business coaching or career, whatever it wants to be, I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't have the same
But
fire.
I love group energy feeds me.
Yeah.
You know, like the collective group energy. There's something about that feels so energizing to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's where we're so different. And that's why like I feel like people who get me, I'm like, oh my God, you're like one of the few people that I spend so much time feeling safe with. Feeling it's not like I have a safety complex. I mean, maybe I do. I fucking worked at the Pentagon. So
I was gonna say.
maybe I do. But you know, it's like I just feel like there's certain women in our circle that I feel so at ease with. And then you guys are all out there with holding a container for so many people. And I so admire that. And that's where we are so different as artists.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing? I worked in the Obama administration, so I learned speech writing through him, right? Like I watched his modality of speaking. And when I started doing my own speaking, I followed his steps because he has a formula. Any good speaker does.
Yeah.
And then now it's like I talk to people, they tell me their story. There's so many people who've come in and been like, I have a massive business and I don't know how to talk about it. And it's so fun.
So good, Ash. That's
I get to hear about their life.
That's so
yeah,
good.
It's like, but I'm so different than you, right? Like you're sitting at this dinner with 40 people. I used to give keynotes like right before the pandemic, I was booking a lot of them. And I would fall asleep for like the next day because I'm such an introvert. And that's the thing people don't realize is like what you're doing matters just as much as how you're doing it.
So true.
So it's like like I'm teaching people career clarity or self-discovery, or now it's the TED Talk thing. But how I was doing it, I can't be on stage all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's the energy in which you're doing it in.
Yeah.
And I think people learn more from that than anything.
Yeah. I'm such a loner. I'm like so meant to be in my little house in Palm Beach.
But then you
with my
go
speech.
to like night like that. But what about like the nightclub thing and going out? Like
But
you're
it's
always
all
like,
about me. I'm in my own little spacesuit dancing at a
Really?
nightclub. It's all about the music.
because I'm like, I don't want to go out.
Yeah,
You're
you
like,
feel
"This."
the energy of all the people.
I don't like that.
All y'all say that to me. Like I was just in Vegas with Amanda Bucci. Everybody, well, she didn't say this, but people are like, "Oh, there's so much energy." I'm like,
Yeah.
"What are you talking about? Put
Yeah,
on a
I
spacesuit."
don't like it.
But I'm not
I don't like
responsible
it.
for any of those people. I'm
I know,
just
but
dancing.
I feel it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to go home and take a shower.
Yeah, I get
So that's
that.
interesting.
Yeah, see, we're so different. But I think
Yeah.
that's the thing for everybody who's listening. Is like, how do you start to take care of and honor how you get energy?
Yes.
How you preserve your energy.
Yes.
Your
yes.
whole world is your life force.
You know what it is, Ash? You know what I've been doing recently? And this is like a newer thing, but I'm waking up and I'm just in pure curiosity of my beingness and my soul. And I'm asking myself.
So you.
And
You're
I
like,
know,
I'm waking
I
up in my
know, I
being.
know.
Tell me more.
But I'm like, what do you want to do today?
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel? Like, what would be most honoring? Like, rather than like my manager being like, we're going to do this and then we're going to cold plunge and then we're going to go here and then we're going to go da, 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 and the manager like doing the things, which is like how I've lived my life for many, many years. There's a different come from where it's like, what feels most expansive? Like, what do you most need right now?
Sounds like inner child work. You're like asking
It's like, it's kind of like,
what do you want? What do you need?
it's kind of like inner child meets soul work. Cause it's like, there's like the inner child, which is like more of like the younger parts of like, I want to cry. I want to play. I want to, I was going to say I want to have sex, but that's weird.
It's a weird child. This can't be contained.
Can't be contained. I don't know about this. My inner child is freaky. But there's like the inner, like the needs, right? But then there's like the here, yeah, this is what it is. Like there's the inner child needs, but then there's like how does the soul want to express?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Do you know like the difference in the nuance there?
Yeah,
And so it's been like such an interesting exploration, like daily of like, what's going to happen today? And like, how am I going to respond to this? Or like, if something happens at work or in a relationship or whatever, it's like, all right, what's happening in my body? What's responding? Like, and I'm just kind of like being this witness to the unfolding of the whole thing.
Yeah. It's interesting you see it as separate. I'm still sitting with that. I'm like, is my inner child separate from my soul? Or because mine like talks to me different. She's like, I want to write, you know?
So is that your inner child or is that your soul?
I think it's the same for me.
Really?
But maybe yours is different.
My soul feels more like when I tune into the energy of my soul, it feels more multidimensional, more expressive, more like there's like a fluidity. It's like
You're like Gumby, man.
Yeah,
All your
it's Gumby.
fluidity, yeah.
Right. It's just like and then but my inner child, it's like she has very specific needs.
Yeah.
The energy feels different there, but
Yeah, I love that you do that. I feel like you're in such a cool era that you get to do that. Like you really have created some of the things you've told me you're going to create, which doesn't mean you're going to create them, right? Like people say they want to create things all the time, but you're an executor. You're the most whimsical executor, you know, other than Angie, two of you.
Angie, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, talk about can't be contained.
Yeah, can't be contained.
I just like do the thing. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like also just the people who, because I feel like there's got to be a lot of people listening that they're like, if they can't be contained and they're listening to the Can't Be Contained show, chances are they've got a lot of parts going on.
Yeah.
Like one term that I've been toying with that I want to use in my online programs, but I just haven't figured out what to create for it, is something that's more modern than like a Renaissance woman.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been thinking about like the omni woman or like a multipotentialite, you know?
Beautiful. Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people listening are omni people, multipotentialites, trying to reconcile, how do I make sense of all these parts?
Yeah.
And I feel like we sometimes have a lot of privilege in the sense where like, yeah, you can create whatever you want to create and have success with it, but we were kind of early to the game. Do you know what I mean? Like when I started my career coaching business, like I didn't find anybody that was like a millennial on the internet doing it. I remember my first website had like a weird cartoon that didn't look like me, but it was supposed to be a cartoon of me. But there was just like nobody doing it. And so there was that advantage of being early to the game, and we were building brands really early on.
Yeah.
So it's never too late to join, right? Like e-learning and these industries are moving, content creators, everything online. But I think there's a humility sometimes to me realizing like, oh, we're really lucky that we also started that. And that's the thing. Like, I feel like in the self-development world, people are like, oh, you know, you did it once, you could do it again. But sometimes it's like, well, you have to do it differently again because the market changed, the world changed.
For sure.
Facebook ads changed. Mark Zuckerberg got in a mood and like the algo isn't worth it. You know,
It's very true. Like the ways in which I'm building pause and the things that are really working with pause right now are completely different from Hungry for Happiness. And I had to learn the hard way, you know, and I'm like, oh, this strategy worked. Let's just rebrand it. And it's like, nope, that's not working anymore. But it's always like that. And I think it's twofold. It's like always being aware of the market and how things are changing and what needs to evolve, and always being in integrity with yourself. Because I really believe that you are your best marketing strategy. Right. So yeah, for people listening and they're like, I have that mission, I have that dream, I have that thing, but like, how do I do it? The thing that I like, the biggest thing, okay, by the way, drinking sparkling water when you're podcasting is not the greatest idea. I feel like I'm constantly holding back a burp.
About to vom. Can't be.
But it's like, you know, it's like realizing that the essence of can't be contained, like what that provides for us is an ability for us to do it in our own way. Because I think that is the most magnetic thing ever. Like talk about magnetism. Magnetism, which is the greatest marketing strategy on the fucking planet, is about you following exactly what you're meant to do and like breaking down the barriers of what you think that you should do.
And by the way, the research shows that when you do something you're good at, you're happier. So like it's kind of just a win. You know? It's fun to listen to you say that because I feel like a lot of people don't give themselves permission to like really realize that. They're still working in the paradigm. I had the craziest conversation with my 11-year-old cousin that is like kind of all about this. And my family goes, you haven't been on the river trip, right? You've almost
been on the river trip, almost come. But then I got a bladder infection.
Oh my God, you went through your bladder infection era.
Oh my God.
Good thing you did a vagina episode right before this. Maybe you got some tips. Your midlife bladder.
My bladder is so good right now. Like I haven't had bladder issues in like 4 years.
There was something going on with
Dude,
that.
it was rad. It was like crazy.
Yeah, well, we just went on my like annual family trip, and anyone of our friends that's like kind of bougie.
I literally cannot believe Bucci and Angie went on that.
I know. Angie especially. She was such a treat on that. So funny. But I feel like anyone who's ever come, they're like, what's this trip? Like Angie couldn't process that we were staying in a motel. Because the reason we go to Lake Mead every year is because it's the cleanest water within reach of LA, which is a 5-hour drive. So Angie was like, oh my God, I can't wait to go to your lake house. I'm like, we don't have a lake house. It's a motel. She couldn't compute it. She couldn't hear it. She was like, I can't wait to go to your lake house. I'm like, Ange, so funny. She's so funny.
She gets it in her head and then she just like, she just repeats it.
Oh my God, she's going to be so fun on this podcast.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
Yeah, so she was like, I can't wait to go to your lake house. I'm like, Angie, imagine everything you hold dear, like everything beautiful, and delete it. That is this trip. I'm like, we drive an hour out of Vegas. It's so ugly. Like the desert is kind of beautiful, but it's also kind of like there's a lot of dead bodies out here probably. Like and then you drive and there's nothing but deadness, and then you see 3 motels, and that's where we're going. And so like she was like spilling her pineapple that she was like preserving all over the lobby by accident. Like she's such a vibe. But all of this said, I just went on this trip. My mom's side of the family is a little more conservative, a little more like different thinking than me. And I have this 11-year-old cousin, and his dad, well, he's like, I guess my cousin's kid. So my second cousin, I don't know how that works, but
that's how that
my
works.
cousin kind of, he talks and takes him like all around the country. And he's like, yeah, he's 5th in the United States for shooting. I'm like, an 11-year-old can shoot a gun? I'm like, we've gotten out of hand. And then he was like, no, it's archery. I'm like, wow. And then my futuristic part was like, oh, cool. Are you going to like send him to college? And is he going to go in the Olympics? Like, what is he going to become with this? Yeah. And my little cousin was like, no, I don't want to be in the Olympics. I'm like, okay, amazing. And then the conversation kind of moved on this family trip. We're like at the One Steakhouse that exists in this area, and the food is kind of questionable. Like there's a B rating, and you're like, why is it a B? You're like, what happened after this restaurant? So we're eating and we're sitting there, and he starts to tell me that kids bully him. Or not him, like his friends. And I'm like, okay, so you're not getting bullied. He's like, no, I don't get bullied because I'm the tallest in my class. I'm the biggest. I'm like, how fucking Darwinistic is that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, how tall are you? He's like, 4'11". I'm like, got it. And I'm like, that's good that you're not getting bullied, but like, what do you do when your friends get bullied? Like, and I was realizing in this moment that like my family comes from what I would perceive, and I feel like an asshole saying this, but like limited thinking, right? Like that side of the family has like a lot of limits and a lot of dysregulation. So I kind of felt like, okay, I can't have a God complex here and save my 11-year-old baby cousin. But if I could just impart some light on this kid right now, I'm going to do it because I'm like bored at the steakhouse. I might as well make this interesting with
Might as well enlighten this child.
Yeah. And I just knew it wasn't going to happen otherwise. Like that's not his environment. So he's like, well, when other kids get bullied, I kind of stay out of it. And I looked at him and I said, do you know what a therapist is? And he nodded, yeah. And I looked at me and Amanda Bucci and I'm like, we kind of do that, but we don't. Like people sit and they talk to us and we're kind of like therapists, but we're not. And he was like nodding and he was with me. Okay, like taking it in. And I'm like, do you have any idea how many adults older than your dad, older than me, have sat down across from me, have sat down across from Amanda, crying over something that somebody that they heard at your age? Like something that someone said to them when they were 10. And he locked in with me. Like was like, I could see him processing it, like trying to make sense of like, my God, I can't even take you seriously with you burping up your elixir. But anyway, like
I'm with you.
I'm with you.
I'm like, I need hydration, but also I don't want to keep going.
But yeah, so I could tell he was locked in and like hearing what I was saying.
Yeah.
And I was like, so here's the thing. I'm like, when somebody's getting bullied, I'm like, do they get physical? Like, do they punch each other? He's like, sometimes. I'm like, I don't want you to get involved and get hurt because it's not your problem. You're not responsible for how other people roll.
Yeah.
And he got it.
Yeah.
I'm like, but if you hear somebody say something really mean and you can say something to soften it, to undo it a little, you should go up to the person and say it.
Ash.
And he was like on it,
Really?
like this little boy, because he's really smart. Everybody thinks their little kids in their family are smart. I actually don't personally think that about all the kids in my family, which I don't know what that means. This kid's very smart. So I saw him lock in and I'm like, by the time you're 12, like according to the research, most of your beliefs about the world are set. And he was like, well, I'm turning 12 next year. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you're fucked. But I couldn't say that. But I was like, yeah. And he's like, so what does that mean? And I'm like, well, you know how your dad works a lot? Because like my cousin has 2 jobs. He works full time and then he works nights. Yeah. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, most likely, like what you think about work, about love, about life, it's all going to be set by the time you're 12. You can change it, but it's harder to change it because your brain is like a sponge.
This is so good.
Right?
At a steakhouse in the middle of nowhere, just drilling into this kid.
Steakhouse with like God knows what in the middle of bum. And so he was like, staring at me and I'm like, your beliefs, like, he's like what? I'm like, well, like your dad works a lot. He's like, yeah. I'm like, so it's most likely that you believe that you're going to have to work a lot. Don't you think? And he's like, maybe. And I'm like, do you have any friends whose parents are super rich? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, do you ever hear them talking about money? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, what do they say? He's like, they think they're going to be rich.
Yeah.
I'm like, exactly. I'm like, that's what beliefs are. And I could see this like little 11-year-old being so like, good. Whoa. And so I have no idea if
You're doing God's work over there.
I'm trying. I'm like, all right. I see this group side of the family once a year at this weird boat trip. I'm going to try to do some good here.
I'm going in.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And then my cousin, I turned to him, my older cousin, his dad. I'm like, you should send him to Europe or something. Like he's in too much like suburbia. Like give him a taste of the world. He's really smart. Like he needs to see how big the world is. And he's like, I don't like Europe. I'm not sending him. Because I was like, send him to London for a summer camp or something. And he was like, I don't like London. And I looked at him. I'm like, see, so that's a belief. Like you might believe that you don't like Europe. So I was like, okay, Ashley, back down, stand down.
Yeah.
But I think we all forget the basics, like as adults, as we're
100%.
in this, you
100%.
know.
It is so interesting how we now as adults get to be in question of, is this actually my belief?
Yeah.
Is this like when I was going through all of that like turmoil with Eric when we got engaged, right? It was like we're like
Commitment
oh
phobia
my
moments.
God, how bad was I in it?
You weren't. I feel like a lot of people go through this. Like I was just talking to a friend today and they were like, you have no idea how many people right before they commit are like, what am I
Why
doing?
don't they talk about that? Like this is like a whole thing.
Because it feels
I'm
like a
talking about
betrayal.
it now. I'm talking about it
But
now.
nobody wants to talk about failure or commitment phobia when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
As content creators, we like to come around when the lesson is learned and there's gold sheath around it. You know, it's kind of annoying that we do that.
Yeah.
But it is like, how can we be valuable if we're like on the floor and we don't know what to say?
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. It was just, it was hard. It was like it was a hard moment. But why was I bringing that up?
I don't know. We were just talking about like beliefs and like, is this my
There we
belief?
go. Okay. So
I can't believe I helped you because I'm just as lost as you are. We're so airy. Like, I can't believe I just did that. Okay, beliefs.
I'm so
commitment
impressed. I'm
phobia,
so impressed.
Let's go.
As Eric and I were going through that like crunch and like burning away everything that's no longer like going to be valuable for a connection going forward, it was so fascinating to see how much of my mom's belief systems were ingrained in me. Oh, by the way, remember that one day you were like, dude, go get an actual therapist. Like, like no more.
Enough spiritual healers. Holy fuck.
Because I'm like, I've got like 9 spiritual healers on payroll right now.
Yeah.
But you're like, go get like a true therapist. And I worked with Debbie.
Oh my God, my
who was like,
therapist.
yes, I worked with your therapist.
Oh my God.
And she's like a freaking therapist. Like, do you know what I mean? Like she's like real rooted in like reality.
Yeah, it's very fucking helpful.
Very helpful.
I feel like sometimes like the spiritual people like us, we use the spiritual people to just like swim around in our spirituality, and sometimes we need someone that's opposite of us.
Yeah, she was like a completely different vibe,
Yeah,
right? And no matter depending on how you define spirituality, you could say that to some degree she is spiritual, but she's not like she's not like energy. She's just so we got to like see how my dad's beliefs and my mom's beliefs and everything was like so interwoven in the process that I was going through. And like the message I kept getting was like, this needs to complete in your system for you and Eric to come together with more harmony and really to have like that divine masculine feminine, because there was still so much interplay of conditional love and things like that in our relationship. And as soon as I like really saw that, like, wow, that's my side of the street that I get to clean up with him, and we got to work on that together, it's just like, oh, those beliefs were not even mine. So, you know, it's like this 11-year-old that could have been like such a defining moment for him, where now when he grows up, he can look back and like actually question our beliefs. Like with everything, like, you know, I love the mantra, I reserve the right to change my mind. Like at any point in time, when I have new information or new life experience, I can change my mind, because our beliefs can be so addicting.
That's what I learned in politics. Like the longer I sat in the Pentagon, the more information I got. Like people have security clearances. That's why it's so weird when I watch a presidential election and people make promises. Like I'm no expert here, but I do know from working in security that there's a lot of information you don't get until you get it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty like key information. And then you have to change your stance.
Right.
So it's like, that's life. We're always working with limited information until we get new information. This moment, you have the most information you'll ever have.
Yeah.
And then in this moment, and then in this moment. So it's like, how can we not give ourselves permission to change? You know, it's wild. That's what I was like, kind of going back to personal branding. That's why I love it so much.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Okay, so here's the thing is like.
Tell me the thing.
Okay, I started personal branding forever ago, and you know I love eating and I love cake, which I'm like 10
Tell
pounds
them
up
about
right now.
your snackcident.
I had so many snackcidents. Like I can't fit in any of my clothes right now. It's
You know
so
what?
shameful.
You know what always comes into my awareness in like the middle of the day, just like, you know that Instagram filter that you love using on the snackcident was like
the old Instagram filter.
Yeah.
Where did that go?
I don't know, but it's your filter.
Yeah.
Like we need to bring it back
With
for
like
you.
the French fries.
Yes, like it's like every
sirens.
Yes.
Do you know?
I think about that all the time. It's like burned in my brain.
It's
Talk
funny.
about personal branding.
Well,
That
so
is
personal
burned in my
branding.
brain.
Okay, so like cake, like layer cake. I feel like, okay, here's the thing about personal branding. I
Tell
feel
me.
like at its worst, you're like Anna Delvey in Inventing Anna, and you're like the Tinder swindler, and people are following you, and you're not really doing much but getting people to press a follow button by like feeding off of, I don't know what you're feeding off of, because
Right.
I don't know. I haven't done it. But I feel like that's the dark side of personal branding, right? Like scamming people and pretending to be someone or putting up a facade. I feel like the best of personal branding is like respecting yourself and really showing the world what you believe, who you are. And I think that whether you want to have one or you don't, what we've learned to be true from like political scandals, for example, why is it that the politician, let's say like Bill Clinton, or I have nothing against anyone, but why is it that the politician bounces back and the victim of the scandal, whatever it is, they're taken out? It's because personal brand, right? Like the politician usually falls back on their reputation they've created elsewhere. And someone who's involved in a scandal with them never maybe created a brand in the first place. So I think the rule around personal branding is create one or other people will create it for you.
Oh, okay.
So I think what I've approached it with for me is, number one, you're allowed to change. And when you build a good brand, you can pivot around it left, right, and center, and people will trust you because you've built credibility and you've given them value in some way. I see the internet like a bunch of islands, and I've talked about that. Like, I feel like there's the podcasting island, there's the book island. Oh my God, my ADHD is like staring at your nail color. I can't even talk.
It's lavender chrome.
It's so good.
It's lavender chrome.
There's the book island, there's the podcast island, there's the TikTok island, there's the television island, there's my courses in Asia on different platforms island, there's blogging. I have spent 1 to 2 years every year in my business, or every other year, on one island. So the first 2 years of my business, I wanted to go wide and not deep with blogging, meaning instead of giving all my blogs to like one platform, I would try to get in with a platform, write a few blogs, and move on to another platform, use it as leverage to get with another platform, right? So like, hey, I write for these people and these are my samples. Can I write for you? And then I get to them, and then I get to them, and then it's like an avalanche, right? Nice little avalanche. So the thing that I learned to love about blogging was it's not about the day it comes out. It's about a compounding effect.
Yeah.
Like now I have 800 blogs on Forbes over 10 years or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that is a huge island, and they've got big SEO. So every single day that people are Googling the problems that I have a brand that solves, they're finding me. Random people are finding me. So that's one layer of my cake. And I really worked on that. And then I autopiloted it, because once you really figure out how to build an island, you can have people on your team help you, right? Like I have people on my team repurposing things that I've written, and I just take a look at it, and it's a 5-minute commitment. You know what I mean? The second layer of the cake for me was like podcasting, right? Or email list, webinars. So it's like I went in on the island.
How was that?
I know, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
It's funny. I just did a webinar for a course on how to launch your podcast that we made.
I never thought you would ever do another webinar for the rest of your life.
And you know, it was so healing because it did so well, and it wasn't about it doing well that was healing, but it was me remembering how good I am at it.
Yeah, you're amazing.
Because that's the thing,
It's
when
speaking,
like
though. You're
something
amazing at
hurts
speaking.
you. Yeah, it's like when you
You're
get
so
hurt
good.
though, you forget that it's like fun too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just forget that part.
So you had a good time.
I had a good ass
love
time.
that.
A bunch
I
of
love that
people
for you.
showed up for my podcast course. We helped them launch their show, and it was so cool. It was like, we are so in personal development. We don't even realize what people are doing in podcasting. Like one guy is a veteran who's helping like veterans returning home process war.
So
Like
good. There's
that's
so
a
many.
podcast.
Oh my
Do you know
God.
what I
It's
mean?
so good. So
So
good.
cool. So there's just so much out there. But I think mastering each layer of the cake for your brand over time puts feminine energy into your career in such a wonderful way. No island has influenced me quite like TED. That's why I'm so excited to be writing the talks and helping people book their spot on stage. But I think, because here's the thing, where else are you going to get 40 million subscribers that a brand hands you to watch you talk for 20 minutes?
Yeah. Amazing.
That's long form,
Amazing.
getting to know you.
Yeah.
And you just get a shot at a platform that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise been able to access. People are like, is TEDx still in? I'm like, yeah. Is 40 million people listening to you still in? Then yes.
Yeah.
So the thing is like, what I love about TED is it's a zero, like it's not about your success. It's about your story and it's about your idea. And so I try to screen people that I write talks for so that we can book them, because we can't book people if I don't feel like they're bookable. But it's been really cool for me to see how much feminine energy that talk has brought into my career. Because here's what happens. When you put so much love, like we were talking about 100%, I put 100% into this talk.
So good.
Remember, it didn't go viral. It died on the internet for 6 months and then it went crazy viral.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I knew, I was like, this thing's going to hit, because going viral is very simple. Maybe it's not easy, but it's simple. You simply write the best talk you've ever written. It's like very simple. And I did. So when it did go viral, it almost felt like, well, there it is, you know? And ever since then, what I've processed is every day there's 10,000 strangers watching my story, thinking about opportunities for me, contacting me. You know, some of these people contacting me for opportunities I would have never thought about for myself. And through that calibration, through that co-creation, I am helping the world help me create my career and make money, having a lot of fun, right? So it's like I've gotten spokesperson contracts, book deals, so many offers for so many things. And all I had to do was write 20 minutes well written and really practice it.
So good. And that's your soul going into it 100%.
Well, and that's the thing is like, I think people are getting really busy creating so many things, but it's like, you can just make one insanely epic thing and just keep getting new eyeballs to experience it. And that's your job. You're in the eyeball business. You're not in the creation business.
That's so good.
Yeah. That's so where I'm at now. I'm like, I'm in the eyeball business. Like, I'm just here to, you know,
I'm
going to be an optometrist. Is that what the eye people?
Optometrist, yeah. Have you ever gone to an optometrist?
Yeah, it's just, I don't like it. I had a whole Remember? Remember
Oh
we were
my
in
God.
Bali?
Oh
Have
my
I
God.
ever
Oh
been to optometrist? Did I give you viral pink eye in the streets of Bali?
I still
You
can't.
came with me to an optometrist, you animal.
I forgot.
You came with me. I was coming undone.
Yeah, you guys actually gave me pink eye in Bali.
It was more than pink eye.
my
It was like
God.
Avatar. Like I came back to
was
the United States and the
terrible.
doctor was like, he made a sound. He's like, huh. I'm like, what's that? He's like, I only see these once a year. I'm like, no.
Remember you thought it was a sty, right?
I just don't know what it
And
was.
I just laughed at you and I was like, oh, I feel bad, but like it's actually really funny. And then
And
5
you
days
got it,
later,
and
I
your
got
partner
it.
got it, and it was
And then
like the
Eric got it. It was a
circle
whole
of
thing.
life.
I remember probably shouldn't have gone to the Tony Robbins conference, but I went to Tony Robbins with pink eye. That's bad, right?
Yeah, we just don't know.
Yeah.
It's like
and,
COVID. Everybody
yeah.
just doesn't even know they have it.
Yeah. And then a couple days later, my eyes were just swollen.
Brutal.
Oh, so yeah. So it is an optometrist.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Sam, real quick, I'm gonna swap batteries.
Okay.
Just wanna let you know that we're at an hour.
Oh,
Oh,
perfect.
wow. Okay.
There
so
it is.
we'll come to a conclusion.
Cool.
This was good. It was like
Yeah, we went in.
creative.
We went in.
Unless you,
We have really.
I'm just on the bottom notch, so I probably have like 10 minutes.
Oh, let's finish.
Let's
close
wrap it
out.
up then. Let's
Yeah.
wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we have to be out of here at 5:30.
Is it 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
No,
you're
good.
fine.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, Bali, you crazy. Anyway,
Dude.
back to the. So anyway, my thing is create a personal brand, be intentional, stop thinking you need to create 1,000 things, create what you actually want to create.
That's
If you
so
don't know
good.
what it is, take your time.
Mm.
Make your time count by connecting to yourself. Like, you know, for me, nightclubs and EDM music does something. For
Yeah,
you,
what is that? It's a spiritual experience
breathwork.
for you.
Yeah, the music gets me like out into a different world.
Interesting.
hmm
Interesting.
Especially live music.
Yeah, mine's breath work, nature, getting
Yeah.
like when I go into nature and I do digital detoxes with Eric and we're just like at the cabin
Oh,
in nature,
beautiful.
like hugging trees. I come back like changed on a visceral level.
Yeah.
It's like knowing those things that light you up. And like making a point of, you know, for you it's going to Vegas and going to nightclubs. For me it's like going to
Yeah.
Idlewild and just like disconnecting and hiking, but it's like bringing us back into that essence of this is what I love so much and this is what makes me come alive. And again, it's like that thing that I shared of like being curious about that, like what makes me feel alive and just following that, doing it, not questioning it. This can't be contained, right? Don't contain it. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Who's gonna judge you or if you think it's crazy or if
That's
you think
the
it's
real
wasted time?
freedom, you know?
Right?
It's like you do not need to care if your weird piece of art fails.
Yeah.
You don't need to care if it's weird and you look back at it and you're like, what was I thinking? Like, who cares?
Doesn't
Who
matter.
cares? That's
Yeah.
the thing. And
Yeah.
why do we care so much? Because it's like biological and Darwinistic, but we don't have to let that be the vibe.
Exactly.
You know, like,
Exactly.
and that's the thing. That's why I think personal branding and going back, whether it's TED or whatever anybody wants to do here, is whether you're in corporate, whether you have a business, whether you're an artist, I get that it's a little bit of a line item to create a personal brand, but look at the internet, look at what islands you want to have. Like my next island, like now I'm
What is that? I'm
literally,
like, ooh,
I mean, like, I feel like I'm moving like literal geographical islands. Like my book is going to come out in Korea. It's going to come out in Japan. I'm going to license my courses there. But I'm also working on like being a reality TV show host because I feel like there's too many love shows that need
I love it.
like psychology.
Yeah, I love it.
So in the same way that you can do a mastermind, I can do conversations when it's like I'm on the periphery, right?
So good. So good.
That's my next island that I'm I'm on the TV island and it's going to be fun.
I love this. I so see that for you.
Me too.
I
It
so
feels
see
fun.
that for you.
Yeah. Maybe somebody's listening and they're like, I'm the producer of Love Island and Ashley's so weird. Let's have her do it.
You would crush Love Island.
I feel like I would because these people are just like lost in the sauce. And I could be like, guys, let's transform through our childhood healing right now. You know?
Just do it.
I don't know if they look like they want to do breath work. Maybe.
We'll see what happens.
Maybe.
We'll give them a 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah.
You get
2 for
Ashley
crazy
Stahl
and
and
crazy.
Sam Skelly.
Ashley Smelly.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, this
You're
was
here.
a very cool episode, and I came in so out of sorts. This was really good
There we go.
to be with you.
So tell us what you're up to, where we can find you.
I mean, guys, where can we find me? I can't be contained. Can't find me anywhere. Just kidding. Well, my podcast, U-Turn Podcasts, everywhere that podcasts are happening. And it's all about how to elevate your mindset, work, and love. So if you're not tired of me talking now, that would be a good spot. My book is everywhere, U-Turn, Y-O-U. And then my TED Talks, like it's at ashleystahl.com/talk if you want to apply to work with me to write your TED Talk and book you on stage to get your TED Talk. It's not something that's for everyone. But if you want to contact me at ashleystahl.com/talk within 2 weeks of this episode airing, mention that it's from the show and I want to give you $2,000 off.
Woo!
Because I just feel like we got to get this going,
Let's
you
go.
know? Let me
Let's
know
go.
you found me.
Let's
So
go. I
thanks
love it.
again.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Can't be contained.